Hi, everybody. Welcome to our show. This is English Digest, and I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
It's our Discovery Unit today, and we're going to be talking about a TV program on the Discovery Channel. And this particular program is called Screen Machines. Okay, so if you talk about the screen, you're talking about the silver screen, or movies, basically. And a lot of movies have different kinds of cars that make them special, okay? And in this program, we're looking at some kind of company that specializes in recreating these cars for people if they want them. And if you can just think about different movies you've seen in the past, some of them have their characteristic vehicles, like a bus or a truck or a car that was only seen in that movie.
Right. It makes it really special. We're going to be talking about a company that prepares props. A prop is something that's used in entertainment, usually in theater or in film. You'll need extra items. Perhaps you have a cane or a hat or a fan or a gun, even a car. These are all considered props. It's prop is singular and props is the plural. It's short for property, but nobody says property.
And nobody really knows that that's what it means. I didn't know until you looked it up before the show. But
I knew it because I was in theater. So
okay, very good. Okay.
Yeah.
So props can also be something that teachers use in their classes, visual aids and things like that. If you're teaching language, for example, props. But these cars are considered props in these films, and people want these props for whatever reason. Of course, they can't use the real thing. Those, of course, are the property of the studios, but they probably want an exact replica or copy of those vehicles for whatever reason. So let's get to it. Let's find out what this company is all about. Let's read the entire contents of our lesson right now. Every once in a while, a film features a prop that ends up being as significant as the lead actors themselves. Certainly, the 1985 film Back to the Future wouldn't be the same without the iconic 1981 DeLorean, which famously became Dr. Emmett Brown's time machine. Indeed, fans of cult classics such as Back to the Future often commemorate films by bringing props to life, and for the ultimate fans, owning a DeLorean time machine is an absolute must. Robert Mosley is one of those fans. He's also the owner of Bob's Prop Shop, a unique prop shop that creates replicas of famous film vehicles, and the star of Discovery's show Screen Machines. Mosley and his crew, including an amateur illusionist and an engineer, take immense pleasure in turning classic cars, such as the DeLorean, into the film props of their youth. For Mosley and his team, there's no project too big, too challenging, or too expensive. Angel Salazar, the actor who played Chi-Chi in Scarface, comes to Mosley with a request for Cream Puff, the film's bright yellow 1963 Cadillac with an animal print interior. Mosley is pumped, but concerned about finding a 1963 Cadillac in Salazar's short time frame. Luckily, Salazar's already found him one and is willing to pay up to $25,000 to complete the project. Mosley and his crew head out to the junkyard, where they find the car covered in years of dust and full of trash. With only 2 weeks to change this junkyard scrap into somebody's nightmare, as the car is affectionately called in Scarface, Mosley and his team definitely have their work cut out for them.
Okay, guys, let's take a look at the title of our article first. We've got Screen Machines. That's the name of this program we're going to be talking about. Brings film props to life. If you bring something to life, it means you make it exciting and interesting. We also use this phrase when we take perhaps a novel and turn it into a film. You bring that novel to life because you're seeing actual actors on screen moving and talking. Here we're talking about film props. Those are items that are used in film or theater too. It has to be some sort of film or theater though. It's acting. And you have props that you use as an actor. It could be anything. For women, it could be a purse, your dresses, your costumes are not props. They have to be actual items that you hold or use. In one thing I did, I had to drink some vodka. So I had a champagne glass, I think, in a hand. Anyway, lots of things are props. And today we're talking about a company that brings film props to life. Famous ones, that is.
Yep, to bring them to life means they're no longer dead or without action. They are actually returned for us to see and behold. Now, every once in a while, a film features a prop that ends up being as significant as the lead actors themselves. So every once in a while, that means sometimes maybe 5% of the time or something like that. Not very often, almost kind of rarely, but yeah, once in a while we do see a movie which has actors in it, but sometimes the prop will be as significant as the lead actors. So here we have that as pattern. I'm as smart as you are. You're as clever as a fox, etc., etc. So sometimes, of course, the prop can be just as memorable as the actors themselves.
For example, a prop that just popped into my mind is the shark in the film Jaws.
That's a prop, yes.
I don't even remember the actors, really, but that shark was a really great prop. It was a machine.
Roy Scheider and Richard Dreyfuss.
Oh, there you go.
I can't remember the other guy, the guy who played Quint. But yes, indeed, that's a good example. The shark is something that people remember as much as the lead actors themselves.
True. Now, certainly the 1985 film Back to the Future wouldn't be the same without the iconic 1981 DeLorean. The DeLorean was a cool car that was in that movie. I do remember the car. I don't remember much else from that movie. Iconic just means it's symbolic of something famous. And here, that DeLorean car, you see it. Even now, I can see a DeLorean, and I think of Back to the Future and young Michael J. Fox, who was the star. He was so cute. It was a fun movie. And that car became, which famously became Dr. Emmett Brown's time machine. Remember? His car was the time machine. I don't remember that, but I do remember the car.
Wow, you don't remember very much about that movie, but yes,
I think I saw it once, yeah.
Yeah, the DeLorean was the time machine. It's the car where the doors opened on the side. Yeah. They went up and they got in, and the dog was riding in it and stuff like that. So, indeed, that car is just as significant, just as important as the lead actors themselves. Okay, so that was the movie back in 1985. You've probably seen reruns on HBO and stuff like that. So, yes, indeed, this is a famous prop here. It was Emmett Brown's time machine, or Doc Brown, as Michael J. Fox called him. Marty McFly was the name of the character there. And indeed, fans of cult classics, such as Back to the Future, often commemorate films by bringing props to life. Okay, so yes, indeed, this is a cult classic. Sometimes movies are famous after they were released, and they continue to be watched by people. That's what a cult classic is. It may not have been very popular when it first came out, for example, but people keep watching it. Like The Big Lebowski is a cult classic because people have watched it for years and years after it was released, etc., etc.
I would add, though, if it's a cult classic, it's usually a smaller group of people who just love that certain thing, not the general population, kind of a smaller group. There are a lot of fun cult classic movies. I wouldn't call Back to the Future a cult classic. I think that was popular with a lot of people. But there are smaller films that are a little weird, especially
like
comedies.
the Rocky Horror Picture Show, you know, that's,
that's
a cult
definitely
classic.
That's a weird
Eraserhead, if you've heard of that. I don't know if you've heard of that before. But in any case here, yes, this is one of those films. And lots of people see these films and they think, hey, I want to bring those props back to life because I want to commemorate that film. To commemorate means you remember something and then you try to show respect for that thing or that person. Usually usually in some kind of ceremony.
Yeah, you do something to really remember something really great. So you want to commemorate films by bringing props to life. And for the ultimate fans, ultimate here just means the best fans in the world, the very, very best. The best fans who love this movie, Back to the Future, owning a DeLorean time machine is an absolute must. I didn't know there were really real time machines. But these guys want to have something that kind of reminds them of that film. I think a lot of people, though, Tom, they like some of these classic films because they can go back in time and they can remember what it felt like to be young again, you know? So ultimate. Yeah. Ultimate can mean different things. Ultimate can also mean the final or the very last, the ultimate stop. For example, on the MRT or a train is the last stop. Ultimate here, though, means the best of something.
Yeah, your ultimate goals, for example, what you want to do with your career or something like that, what you want to do after a long process. And yes, indeed, I think they also brought the DeLorean back to life last year in 2015 because that was when supposedly they were traveling to the future in that film.
Yeah.
So I think there was some comedy show at night that had Michael J. Fox and the other guy. I don't know his name.
I can't remember his
name. They
name.
appeared on this show as if they had traveled from the past. And they got out of a DeLorean. So, yes, indeed, they still had to have that car around for that reason. It was a short-lived company. I think it only lasted a year or two before it folded or went bankrupt.
I knew someone who had a DeLorean.
Okay.
And those the side parts of the car, the doors just kind of go up. They're really cool. He was a football player. They have more money than most people.
True. Yeah. So I guess a handful of people have those things.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about this actual program here. Or this actual store called Bob's Prop Shop. It's run by Robert Mosley. He is one of those fans of these cars, and he's also the owner of, well, as I said, Bob's Prop Shop. Bob is a short form of Robert, as you know. This is a unique prop shop that creates replicas of famous film vehicles. And it's also the star of Discovery show Screen Machines. So he's the owner of this store, which specializes in creating replicas. It's unique. It's very special. A replica, of course, is a copy of something. And a vehicle, of course, is anything that takes us for a ride, basically. It could be a bicycle. It could be a motorcycle, a car, a truck, a semi-truck. Would a train count as a vehicle?
Yeah, but it has to be on land. I did read that, and I thought, oh, that's interesting.
So
yeah,
it's
it
not
has
a
to
boat.
Be. I wouldn't say a train is a vehicle, but maybe. I guess.
I guess technically it could be, but yeah, I think of vehicles as being on roads.
Yeah, anything that can transport people or things on land is a vehicle. Lots of types of vehicles out there. Did you talk about replica? Replica is just a tiny miniature of something that looks like a bigger object, whatever that might be, a replica. A lot of times when you go sightseeing, you'll pick up souvenirs that are small replicas of something famous like the Eiffel Tower. Or here in Taiwan, if you come here on vacation, you might go home with a little replica of 101.
Or if you travel to Japan and see some of their big castles, a lot of them aren't the original castles. They are reproductions or replicas of the original castles, but still, it's something to check out. Okay, that's about as far as we're going to go for the first part of our program. Let's take a little bit of a break right now and listen to our Chinese teacher.
Hi everyone, my name is Jenny. 今天我们看的是第8单元，这是一个节目内容，它要谈怎么样打造荧幕上的名车。好，这和 Discovery 频道有关。那我们来先看看前面他要说为什么要谈车子呢？其实有时候一部电影里面的道具非常的重要，而且甚至于跟他的演员一样的重要。好，看到和什么一样怎么样这个片语 as 中间形容词或副词后面再加 as， 这边当然比较的就是道具和演员。那这里其实还有一个片语要注意，就在第一句话里面他说ends up being as significant as the lead actors themselves. 这个 end up 它就是一个片语，后面表示什么样的结果，什么样的下场。那它后面呢会接一个补语，所以如果说像碰到动词的话，它会变成 V-I-N-G， 像这个地方 end up being， 这个 B-E-I-N-G 就是这么来的。好，当然我们说重点在于道具怎么会这么样的重要。这边要举例，有一个电影叫《回到未来》，当然这是好多年前的电影了，1985年。那当时呢，这个电影里头有一部车，这个 DeLorean 这一部车啊，其实很多人呢都觉得看过电影后一定不会忘记它。好，那这边提到这部车后面有一个逗点，然后 which famously became Dr. Amos Brown's time machine。 好，我们知道回到未来这个时间，它基本上电影的内容就是跟穿越时空有关。那里面的这个车子 which 它指的当然就是这一部1981年 DeLorean 这部车，但是你知道只要是专有名词，你后面呢一定要用逗点隔开，要用非限定用法补充说明这个车它的状况。它其实就是里面有一个主角，这个博士他的时光机。好了，我们再来看下面。那谈到说回到未来，很多人是他的忠实粉丝，而他们纪念电影的方式就是有这个电影里面的这一部经典名车。好咯，我们来看看那是怎么一回事呢？当然有一位关键人物，这个人是 Robert Mosley， 他其实就是一个忠实粉丝，而呢他同时也拥有一个店，这个店呢是一个道具店。好，那他提到这个道具店，当然这个店里头他是专门在复制一些电影名车。好，当然为什么要介绍这个人 Robert， 他其实也是这个节目里的明星主角。我们刚刚提到今天的文章内容要谈的就是 Screen Machines， 这是 Discovery 频道一个节目，而 Robert Mosley 他就是我们的节目主人翁。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. We're talking about screen machines and bringing film props to life.When we left you, we were talking about a Robert Mosley. He's a really big fan of Back to the Future, and he owns a store called Bob's Prop Shop, a unique prop shop that creates replicas of famous film vehicles. So he focuses in or concentrates on reproducing these famous film vehicles, not other props, just vehicles, and is the star of Discovery's show called Screen Machines. Mosley and his crew, the people that work with him, including an amateur illusionist and an engineer, take immense pleasure in turning classic cars like the DeLorean into film props of their youth. So let's take a look at some of these words. We know what a crew is. It's people who work together in one place. For example, a ship has a crew. Remember, it's non-count. You can't say crews. He's a member of a crew, you have to say. And he's got somebody on his crew that's an amateur illusionist. If you're an amateur anything, guys, it means you're doing something that you enjoy or like, but it's unpaid. If you're a professional, people actually pay you money. So he's an amateur illusionist. An illusionist is another word for magician. You create things that deceive people's eyes.So he's got this illusionist and an engineer who work with him, and they all take immense pleasure in turning classic cars into film props of their youth. When you take pleasure in doing something, it means you really enjoy it. So here it could be take pleasure in turning classic cars into something. You could take pleasure in sewing. You could take pleasure in hiking every weekend. Whatever you take pleasure in, you enjoy. So immense just means extreme. So you love it a lot.
Yes, indeed. A lot of pleasure in turning those classic cars like the DeLorean into film props. Of course, if you can think of some previous films and the famous vehicles vehicles in them, like in the movie The French Connection. Gene Hackman was driving a car under the elevated subway chasing the bad guy. That could be I don't know what that car was, actually.
I honestly thought of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
There you go.
That had that cute old-fashioned car.
Yeah, I remember that. Also, the Volkswagen Beetle that was in The Love Bug.
The Love Bug, yeah.
So if you think about it, there are cars in lots of movies, and lots of people would like to bring those cars back to life. So, of course, for Mosley and his team, there's no project too big, too challenging, or too expensive. Money's no object. We're going to do it. You just give us the project, and we'll do it. Now, some of you may remember, is it a 1980s film or a 90s film starring Al Pacino as Scarface? This movie was kind of a gangster movie.
Yeah, it was.
Which took place in Miami, and I think Michelle Pfeiffer was in that movie.
She was. It was one of her first movies. Yeah.
That's right. So we've also got an actor in that movie by the name of Angel Salazar, who is Cuban. I suppose you'd pronounce that Angel Salazar.
This is a 1983 film. I just looked it up.
83, going that far back.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in any case, Angel Salazar played Chi-Chi in this movie Scarface. You can say Angel Salazar. That's fine. And he actually comes to Mosley with a request for cream puff. In that movie, there was a bright yellow 1963 Cadillac, which had an animal print interior. Yes, I remember him actually driving this car.
Oh, really?
Along the beach in Miami, Florida there. And it was kind of an awful car, a bright yellow Cadillac with this animal print interior. Sometimes you see people wearing this kind of clothing, especially women, animal print tops, that look like a leopard or something.
I have an animal print blouse, yeah.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I would expect beetle nut girls to wear something like that.
No. It's actually come back into fashion.
Oh, has.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
Tom, you don't stay current with fashion. I can say that. Okay, so it sounds like a crazy looking car, doesn't it? Yellow with animal print interior. Interior just refers to what's inside the car or what's inside a house as well, the interior. Mosley is pumped, but concerned about finding a 1963 Cadillac in Salazar's short time frame. He doesn't have a lot of time to put together this prop that matches the old car in Scarface. If you're pumped, guys, it's slang. It just means you're really, really excited about something. And he is, but he's also concerned at the same time. If you're concerned, you're a little worried. I'm concerned I'm not going to finish my project in time, or I'm concerned I didn't study enough for my test, so I'm going to not do so well today. So he's concerned because he doesn't have a lot of time. Time frame just means a period of time. And you can use different adjectives to describe how long or short that period is.
Yeah, where the heck are they going to find a 1963 Cadillac?
Yeah.
That's like over 50 years old. Well, luckily, Salazar's already found him one. So Salazar already was looking for this car, and he knows where it is. I guess it's in some junkyard somewhere. And also, Angel Salazar is willing to pay up to $25,000 to complete the project. I'm not sure if that includes the actual cost of the car or not.
I don't think so.
If it's in the junkyard, it's probably not that expensive, but still, if the owner of the junkyard knows that Angel Salazar wants to buy it, he's probably going to jack up the price.
It means to raise it really high, jack up. Yeah.
But in any case, Mosley and his crew and his team head out to the junkyard where they find the car. A junkyard, of course, is where they keep old cars when nobody wants them anymore. Maybe people can look for parts in them or something like that. And so they go to this junkyard, but it's covered in years of dust. It's been sitting there. It's all dirty. And it's also full of trash. Sometimes you see cars like that along the streets in Taiwan. When people don't want the car, they just take it out and park it somewhere. And it gets covered with dust and filled with garbage. And the tires go flat. And it's just in the way. And finally, somebody tows it away.
Well, he's only got 2 weeks to change this junk into somebody's nightmare. That's what they called the car in the movie, which is so funny. Scrap is stuff that's left over. Junkyard scrap is just the leftover items that are in the junkyard people have thrown away, they don't want anymore. But if you've eaten dinner and they're leftovers, sometimes we say they're scraps, and we feed the scraps to the dog.
Yeah, sometimes, of course, in Taiwan, you hear these guys going around in these trucks going, Pai Tia Tam Weibo. Do you have any scrap metal that you'd like to sell? So in any case, yes, this is junkyard scrap, and it's somebody's nightmare, as it's called in the film, affectionately, which is like a nice name for it, okay?
It's kind of a nickname. They think it's cute.
Exactly. And Mosley and his team definitely have their work cut out for them. This is a popular phrase to talk about a job that's going to be kind of difficult. Well, you certainly have your work cut out for you. In other words, you're going to have some trouble doing that work because it will be quite difficult.
Yeah, it's somebody's nightmare is what they call the car. But if you look at the vocabulary word nightmare, it could be a bad dream. That's the literal translation of it. But sometimes we'll use nightmare to talk about a really unpleasant experience, especially a bad date. Oh, how did your date go last night? Oh, it was a nightmare. Or he was a nightmare. Or my boss is a nightmare. It's just used to describe something that's unpleasant. Of course, in the movie, it was affectionately called that. So people kind of love the car, but that was their little nickname for it.
And oftentimes in movies, you hear the phrase, hey, who are you? I'm your worst nightmare.
Yeah.
In other words, I'm going to cause a lot of trouble to you. You can't have trouble worse than me. So it's called that affectionately in this movie, and that's one example of the many cars that they try to restore for their clients. And we'll continue talking about some other examples of cars in our next program. But for now, everybody, we're going to say farewell after we hear from the Chinese teacher.
好，我们继续来看，谈到Robert Mosley， 那他其实是有个 team 的，他的 team 里面有一个 illusionist， 我们翻成幻术师，还有一位 engineer 工程师。那他们的工作就是要把像这种 DeLorean 跑车这种经典车款，然后去变成电影里面的这种电影道具。那这里有一个片语叫 take pleasure in， 也就是对什么事情感到有兴趣，对什么事情热衷于做它。我们有时候会换成 take interest in something 或 take delight in something， 换句话说，做某件事其实是他的兴趣，乐在其中。好，再来往下，下面呢就提到说他的第一个任务是什么。他第一个任务是有一部电影，这个电影叫 Scarface， 我们的中文片名翻成八面煞星。那这个八面煞星里头有一位人物，他是演那个琪琪，也就是琪琪的这个主角呢，他请他去打造一辆车，这辆车叫做 Cream Puff。 好，那这一部车其实当然它有在电影里面出现，而很特别的，它是一辆1963年的凯迪拉克车。那这件事情呢，对 Mosley 来说真的是很令他兴奋，所以他用到了这个动词 pump。 我们知道 pump 如果当名词的话，当然就是帮浦或者是几桶，是打气筒。当作是动词的话，就有点是驱动他，让他兴奋起来。所以 Mosley 知道说有人要请他去打造这辆名车的时候，他当然是感到很兴奋。所以我们说 Mosley is pumped。 不过有一点可能是问题所在的，就是时间。因为呢，你要找到这辆车，而且时间很短。好，这样子的话怎么办得到呢？好，当然这整个事情当中有一些曲折，不过很幸运的是找到车了。他们在一个 junkyard 找到了这辆车。我们看到 junkyard 垃圾场后面有一个 where， 我们晓得 where 这叫关系副词，基本上 where 它的意思就等同于是在哪个地方。如果我们用关系代名词来写，就是in which in the junkyard， 他们在这个垃圾场里头找到了这辆车。而这个车呢，其实已经很旧了，都是灰尘，覆盖在陈年灰尘之下，而且都是垃圾。好，我们看到这个地方有一个 covered in years of dust and full of trash。 我们知道 covered 它是过去分词，就等于你是在讲 which is covered， 当然我们不需要再用另外一个关系子句来修饰了，所以我们就把它简化成为分词片语，你只要保留过去分词的 PP， 也就是 covered。OK， 我们今天这篇文章的解释到这里结束，下次见。
Well, thanks for joining us, guys. That's just day 1 of our Discovery unit. We're talking about screen machines. In our next program, we're going to take another look at some props that were restored, you could say. We're going to be talking about a cool car, so join us then. You'll hear about some classic cars and movies while you're listening. For English Digest, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Tom. Goodbye.
Bye.